So we've got a hadith here. Verily Bilal gives the call to prayer at night, so continue to eat and drink until Abdullah, son of Maktoum, cries out. This is the Isha and Fajr issue. In Muslim countries, they actually have two adhans. If you've ever done Ramadan in a Muslim country, they have one adhan which is to get people up for suhoor, and they have another adhan that gets people up, that introduces the Fajr. Okay, this used to freak me out in Morocco. I used to hear the adhan and think I've missed out on my suhoor, and I would be like jumping. I've never jumped out of bed so fast in my life, trying to cram something in my mouth before it finishes. So that's what that's for. In Morocco, actually, they use cannons. They actually fire off cannons, and I'll tell you, that wakes you up. So this is what was done. Now, the question is when does Fajr come in? This is a really contentious issue. The truth is, I think it's still the case, I might be wrong, that people differ. Dr. Asim Yusuf's written a book last year about this issue, and he has the position that he's done all these tests. It's probably one of the most thorough books done on this topic, is that Fajr comes in around 14 degrees. When I mean degrees, I mean the sun below the horizon. But most of the scholars do not take that position. It says 18 degrees, okay? But I say, regardless of what I say to people is, look, go with your local thing if it works for you. If it works for you. I personally think that 18 degrees actually works best. It's my personal opinion. Why? Because it doesn't come in, and so then what do? Some say you go with the middle of the night, other people say you go with the last time it came in and so forth, but it's about a few minutes in there, the difference. So we're talking around 1 o'clock, okay? As I said, you've got to check with your own. You can go, I use the British Royal Observatory website, okay, when you can put in how many degrees it is, so you get checked. But generally across the country, it's like it doesn't come in. So when it doesn't come in, you can have there are all different manners of estimating how to verify where it comes in or not. And so that gives us leeway, okay? But I do say if you go with one position, you can't chop and change, okay? It defeats the purpose, okay? But there are some practical elements why people ask that question, which I'll touch on. So I think the most practical position is this 1 o'clock time. Why? Because it means you go, you break your fast at Maghrib, you relax, you go to the mosque, you pray Isha, you pray Taraweeh, and by the time you get home, basically, you've got about 45 minutes, if that, home to eat something. Fajr comes in, and you get a full night's kip. You pray Fajr its earlier time, around 1:15, whatever it is, and then you get a full night's rest. So I think, for me personally, it works a lot better. That doesn't necessarily mean it works for everybody, okay? I don't think it's the issue of the food, to be honest, because I think the other ones are around 3:30, is it? What's the difference between 2.5 hours of food? I mean, I don't think it makes a major amount of difference. I think that's actually harder because people will go back to sleep and trying to get back up at 3:30. I think that's really difficult, to be honest. That's my own personal opinion. So this is down to the individual to choose what works for them. The difficulties with children, and I've said I did speak previously of children, what I recommend with children is, this brings us to the Isha issue. Isha does not come in according to the white twilight. There's a whole ding-dong about whether it comes in on the red twilight. What I mean by red twilight and white twilight is, in the sky you see a redness in the sky, that disappears basically, Isha's in. Then you see a whiteness in the sky, don't you? After that, it's still light. That doesn't go out. Okay, that's around 18 degrees. As I said, this is a whole contentious issue. But so as long as the position I take that makes it easy, and the mosques take this anyway, to be honest. The mosques even now, they're fixing Isha an hour after Maghrib, okay, and they're praying it an hour after Maghrib, which it hasn't even gone out on 18 degrees yet, to be honest. It's not really valid position, no, I can't. But the Indo-Pak, most of the Indo-Paks go with this, is that on May the 12th, I think, it completely goes out on white twilight. And so then I say, you've got options to play with of how you pray your Isha. To be honest, I say to people they can even join their prayers when that happens. And so Maghrib, because it's not in. And so you pray Maghrib and then you pray Isha and you can go to bed. In Ramadan, you're not really going to want to do that because you're going to want to eat, isn't it? Okay? So you pray your Maghrib. This is what I say, especially for children who are fasting, because they've got school the next day. What I recommend they do is they break their fast, they have some food, they pray Isha about half an hour afterwards, okay? And then they go to bed, get some rest, then you wake them up around 12:30 at night, you give them a bit of food, they pray, or 1:45, whatever, give them some food, they pray Fajr at its earliest time, 1, they go back to bed, and when they come back from school, they go to bed as well, at Asr to get a bit more sleep time. As I said, that's just my suggestion. Everyone's got to work accordingly, what works for them. And so that's my practice. I try to be, rather than going all the details, what's the right position, what's the wrong, I try to offer a more practical solution for people. And that takes a more precautionary position in that extent, in terms of stopping eating. It's not necessarily the most precautionary position for Fajr, because if you want to be really precautious, what you do is you stop eating at 1, but pray at 3:30. No one can do that. That's going to be too difficult for people. Does that answer the question for Isha and Fajr issues? Yeah, does that make sense?
Just during British summertime.
Sorry?
That's just during British summertime.
Yeah, British summer. Basically, from May to July, Isha does not come in on the white twilight. Okay? And so we can take, as long as it goes out on one of the times, I say you've got options. Pray it an hour after, join it, whatever works for you. What the issues people have is, this is the issue people have, they say, look, when I'm at home, I want to do the 18 degrees and I want to pray early and go to bed. But at the weekend we go to my mum and dad's house and they do it on the other time. Can I go with them? Can I go with the other time there? And I say, I'm a bit hesitant with that. Because it's a bit I can understand why there, because you don't want to, because especially in the Indo-Pak community, Suhoor is like a family time, isn't it? And so I say, if you still live with your folks, then just go with what they're doing, okay? Unless they're willing to, they're amicable. If they're kicking up a right fuss and it's causing a right stress in Ramadan, then you've got flexibility to work with, to be honest. But if you go with one position, you should stick to it. That's mine. Yes? Yeah.
Is that something across all schools?
Well, so is joining according to all schools? No. In the Hanafi school, there's no joining, okay? But the point here is the prayer time doesn't come in. So you're not joining because Isha doesn't come in. I mean, if some people are really hardcore, they say you wait right up to Fajr and pray Isha as Qadar because it doesn't come in. There's all these weird positions on it. So, but there's another principle, is that in times of hardship, it's perfectly permissible for you to take dispensations from other schools. Like, for example, I say this, let's be practical. If you're going travelling on a plane and you've got 6 kids with you and a wife, you ain't going to be praying your prayer I say join, make life easy for yourself. This is an issue of hardship. You have to be practical sometimes, and you can't expect your wife and kids to be praying when the time comes in. Join, because you've got to make ease, you've got to be practical. And so I personally, I join, I'm a confused Muslim anyway. I'm a Maliki, Hanafi, all sorts, because I studied Maliki fiqh in Morocco, and so I've tasted both sides. It's difficult for me. So I personally join when I'm travelling, because you just got to be practical. What most Indo-Paks do is they just miss the prayer and pray it when they get there anyway, that's worse, because that's actually sinful, because you're letting the prayer time go out. At least take a valid position. And so with this night issue thing, the issue is even the Indo-Pak community, they're not doing it properly, to be honest. Even the scholars admit to this, but they say we can't join because the community will never accept joining, because it's just not a cultural practice. So what they do is they fix Isha at an hour afterwards, even when Isha's actually still in. And so which isn't really, you've got 2 options. You pray a prayer in its time, or you join it. So I think with us, our generation, most of us are a little bit more educated. We can stomach these sort of suggestions. So does that answer your question? Yeah.
What's the time period? It's about May,
It's about May, July. If you go into the British Royal Observatory and put prayer times, you can get it. Or maybe I'll put a link. We've got your email details, haven't you, of everyone? And so.
Is it the red highlight there? Is it Shafaq al-Ahmar?
Yeah, Shafaq al-Ahmar.
Does that not disappear?
No. The strongest position with Shafaq al-Ahmar, the red twilight, is it doesn't go out in the wet summer. Okay, so it's about 12, it's between 10 to 12 degrees, really. I don't know what Dr. Asim was. I couldn't find my book. You know, when you always, that one day you never go to a book, and the one day you need it, it just doesn't seem to appear on your bookshelf. I don't know, it's this jinn that just annoys, you know, I don't know what it is. So I couldn't find it today. I didn't know what his position was on Isha, but we spoke to an expert who's from the British Royal Observatory, and he says it's really about 10 degrees, but people, to be precautionary, say about 12, whilst the white is about 18. Yeah. Is that okay for everybody? Yeah. So what we do is, we say, we do a bit of playing around, but it's just for, you have to be practical, is that as long as it's going out on one of the Isha times, we can do the joining, because it's not there, according to that position. And that's just for ease, because even the 10 degrees gets really long. I mean, at some point it's like about 11 at night, and you can't expect people who have full-time jobs to start doing that sort of thing. And so you have to provide ease. And I know some mosques, they do this joining for ease. I prefer to do it where it's gone out at least on one of them. You can start doing that sort of thing. So I say once Maghrib gets at 9 o'clock, then there's some leeway for Isha, I say. Yeah.
So later,
yeah. So basically by the 11th of May, Maghrib's going to be, it's nearly 9 o'clock now, isn't it? So, what is it? Quarter to. So once it gets to 9 o'clock, Isha, you've got flexibility for things, I say. Okay, for things. Okay?
I know a family who in the past few years, every Ramadan they'll get a timetable from all the different mosques in their community, and for all different times, 1 o'clock, it's 1 or 2 o'clock, it's 3 o'clock, or Sahri, or Fajr start time, and it just depends on which it is, obviously.
Yeah, the sister Zainab was saying with the prayer times, they get all the different ones in the community and decide which one they like each day, which one to do. Okay, that's it takes away from the spirit of the worship. So it's not, I can't say it's invalid, but it just takes away. It's a bit Bertie Bassett's all sorts pick and mix. Okay, it takes away from the spirit.
So technically, some don't really have a Fajr Kadhib.
Oh, Fajr definitely. Yeah, I mean, I've driven up to Glasgow, and you just see a bright light. You know, the Mogwais will be freaking out. Okay, it's like.
At that point, you kind of estimate the time.
Yeah, you do an estimation, which they say there's a whole difference of how you do it. Is it the closest country? All these sort of things. Yeah. I think the most practical one is the Nisful Layl, which is about 1 o'clock. Yeah, because it means you can pray your Isha and get, you know, especially for Ramadan, you get a full night's sleep then. It just.
So is that what they do in a place like Norway, I think?
Oh yeah, definitely they will do.
So they do this one later.
It's even more difficult for them. I mean, Glasgow is really difficult. Even here, they're praying Taraweeh in the mosques. They're praying like what Maghrib's about half. It goes up to about 10 o'clock, past 10 o'clock Maghrib. Yeah, and then their Fajr's like at 1 o'clock in the morning. Look at the time space you've got to break your fast, pray Taraweeh, and get Sihri in and pray Fajr. It's like suddenly this, you know. It's very difficult. So we don't have it that difficult, to be honest. Me personally, I don't think food's an issue here. You know, people are trying to get all these dispensations for eating and stuff. If you have regular fast through the year, honestly, it's not difficult. I don't think most people struggle with Ramadan, to be honest. I think, you know, there are probably people who do. But the people I've spoken to, the food issue is not the issue. It's just that time scale of getting in everything you need to get in that time.